Hello, and welcome to the Second Call Defense podcast. I'm Dean Reek, and I'm joined by Sean Maloney, firearms attorney and co-founder of Second Call Defense. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Dean. Thanks for having me here again today.
Sean, the whole idea of Second Call Defense is that you might be involved in a self-defense shooting, and you absolutely will need legal assistance. Your first call is to 911. Your second call is to Second Call Defense, thus the name of the organization. But let's talk about that 911 call, because it sounds pretty simple, but it can actually be confusing and potentially get you into even more trouble than you might already be in. So let's talk about that. First thing, Sean, is I've attended some of your seminars, and I know that you talk about what happens to you mentally, emotionally, physically, right after a shooting, and people probably aren't thinking really clearly at that point, right? What's going on?
Well, it's the psychological and physical aspects of a threatening encounter. A lot of different things happen that happen automatically. We don't control it. Our bodies were created to protect ourselves. The quote unquote fight or flight response. So you're going to have an increased heart rate. You're going to have accelerated breathing. Your blood vessels are going to restrict to the extremities and push all the blood towards your major organs. Parts of your body are going to be dilated with blood vessels to the muscles. Your pupils are going to dilate. You have auditory exclusion. You have hearing loss, or everything's an echo. You can't clearly hear what's happening. Tunnel vision. You really lose your peripheral vision. The only thing your eyes are focusing on is the knife, the gun, the hands, the bat, whatever the threat is at that point in time. You start to sweat, hyperventilate, and the adrenaline kicks in. You have superhuman strength. And unfortunately, after all of that, you have sometimes little to no memory of what just occurred. And so you've just defended your life. You have your body going through all these changes that you have no idea has occurred. And now you have to calm yourself down right away, call 911 and tell them what happened and get help. And that's where the problem comes in. It's the worst time to be in physically and mentally, to be describing the situation or having any meaningful type of communication with somebody.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're really pretty messed up at that moment. There's this thing that you've talked about called the excited utterance. And I'd never heard about that until you talked about it in one of your seminars. Basically, you'll just be blathering like a maniac and saying all kinds of crazy stuff that may or may not be true. And like you said, this is a terrible time to be talking to 911. What do you do about that? I mean, you can't change the way your body responds, and yet you need to get on the phone.
The first thing you want to do, and the excited utterance is one of the 7 exceptions to the rules against hearsay. Hearsay is an out-of-court statement offered to prove the truth of what happened or the matter asserted. So essentially, common law and the courts decided that after a fight or after an accident or the horse ran over somebody or whatever happened back in common law days, that you were so excited and it happened so quickly, and what you started spouting, I shot him, I killed him, I strangled him, or I can't believe I killed him, something like that comes out, and the courts have decided that, well, it's an excited utterance, and you're acting under such a sudden rush of adrenaline, passion, that there's no way you could possibly be making up a lie. And so they let it in as being substantively the truth, because it happened so quickly after the traumatic event that you can't possibly be making something up. Well, later on in 2025 or 24 now, we realized that, hey, wait a minute, that's the last time someone should be making a statement, and that everything that the courts for years thought about that being a true statement is wrong, because you have no idea what happened. You have no idea what you're saying. You don't remember the activity. Tunnel vision took you down to you and one person, or you and a gun, and you don't even see the other 20 people in the room. So that's where the excited utterance came from, and that's how it comes in. And what do you do about it? Because you got to make that 911 call to summon help, and that's the only purpose of the 911 call, is to specifically summon help, not to do anything else. So you want to try to practice some tactical breathing, calm down as much as you possibly can, and then call 911. And remember, when you make that 911 call, everything you say is going to be on tape. Everything you say is going to be there forever. And I point out that if anybody can remember George Zimmerman in a George Zimmerman trial, and it's hard to believe I'm saying, can you remember the George Zimmerman trial? It just shows how old we're getting. But one thing that struck me that the prosecutor in this case that was trying to put George Zimmerman away for decades, first thing out of his mouth to the jury was, "You're going to hear tapes of a 911 call." Now, keep in mind, George Zimmerman never made a 911 call. 7 other people did. He stated, "You're going to hear that tape. It was recorded forever, forever." So remember, you're going to be recorded, and everything you say, whether you meant it, didn't mean it, whether it made sense or didn't make sense, is recorded forever. And I point out to people that your first contact with law enforcement is the 911 call. So you better make sure that you do it right.
Now, you mentioned tactical breathing. There is this thing that I've done. It's called 4-square breathing. I guess that's tactical breathing.
That's correct.
Can you describe that? Because the whole point of this is for you to be able to take a moment and calm yourself down. And this 4-square breathing technique actually does work. It can, you won't be normal, but at least it'll sort of take the edge off and help your brain start to work again. Can you talk about how that works and how to do it?
Sure. In fact, earlier this morning, I had my doctor's appointment that I regularly have, and every time before I get my blood pressure taken, because I want to make sure my test scores are good, I practice 4-square breathing. So I take in deep breath, 4 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, pause for 4 seconds, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and cyclically do that. And you'll be amazed how calm that you get, that extra oxygen getting into your system. You're remembering to breathe again, and it's calming you down. And so that when I say 4-square breathing or tactical breathing, that's what I'm talking about. And I urge everybody to practice that because it works. It really and truly does work, and you'll feel the difference.
Yeah, the theory is that if something is going on in your mind, it has an effect on your body. But then the opposite also works. If you do something with your body, it can affect your mind. So if you're breathing slowly and calmly, it helps to calm your mind down, right? Because they're both connected. Right. And this is probably a good time, Sean. I would think that while you're doing this is maybe to think about what just happened, maybe refresh your recollection, replay in your mind what just happened. Think about what you're going to say before you say it. Is that a good idea?
Yeah, that's one thing that's key to do before you make that phone call while you're practicing that breathing is to stop yourself and think about, okay, what just happened? Because it's not going to automatically come there and rush to your forefront of your brain and your thoughts. And sometimes it won't come back for weeks or maybe never come back. But in the short term, you want to think, what just happened? What happened that caused me to use lethal force? Why was I in fear of death or serious bodily injury or harm? So that you're aware of that. And then when you make the short statement you do to the 911 operator, at least you can articulate that. I was in fear for my life. He attacked me. He had a knife. He was going to kill me.
Yeah, nobody believes that all this stuff happens until it actually happens. Like, for example, this idea of tunnel vision. I saw a video once, and it was the most fascinating thing I'd ever seen. There was a video, and there were people in these black outfits, and they were moving around, and they had a white ball, and they were tossing the ball back and forth between each other. And they gave you a challenge. They said, see if you can count how many times the ball moves from person to person. So, I like challenges like that. So I was, looking really closely at that ball, and I was counting and trying to make sure that I was going to get this right, because they said, most people don't get this right. So I watched and I watched and I watched. I got to the end of the video, and then they said, go back and watch the video again. If you didn't see something odd, go back and watch the video again. Don't count the ball, just watch the video. And I did. And right in the middle of a video, a guy in an ape costume walked right out into the middle of the frame, looked right at the camera, and just stood there. And I did not see it, Sean. A guy in an ape costume walked right in front of the camera, and I did not see it. I was flabbergasted. How could that possibly be? Well, because my attention was on something else.
And that's why Eyewitness testimony is the most unreliable testimony offered in a courtroom. And oftentimes it seems to be the most real because you're not looking at pictures, you don't see whatever the weapon could be on a table, and you're not seeing crime scene photos. There's somebody in front of you testifying, this is what I saw. Well, it's a traumatic experience no matter what they're seeing. And they're like the rest of us are undergoing the psychological aspects of a threatening encounter because they're involved, they're watching it. So, that was a great study, and it's something that we got to keep in mind, and that's why the 911 call gets to be so important.
So, Sean, you've defended yourself. You've had this terrible reaction. Your body just goes haywire. Your brain is like a bag of cats. But you've taken a moment, you've calmed down, and you've thought about what just happened, try to get the details straight in your mind. Then it's time to call 911. So let's talk about the actual call. You're going to dial, obviously in the United States, it's 911. And when they answer, they're going to say something like, 911, what's your emergency? Then what, Sean? What do you say at that point?
First, I'll go over the 911 call, what I will say, and then we'll break that down. So 911, what's your emergency? Operator, my name is Sean Maloney. I'm at 288 Willow Ridge Court. I was attacked and fear for my life. There's been a shooting. Send an ambulance and police. I'll be in the driveway. I'm 6'2". I'm bald. I'm wearing t-shirts, a white t-shirt and shorts, or my son, who's 6'4", will be in the driveway. He'll direct the police when they get here, or I'll be in the foyer guarding the assailant, rendering first aid. Please send help. And then you hang up.
And that's it.
That's it. And I can promise you the 911 operator is going to call you back because their job is to keep you on the line. And, I'm not telling people to hang up because you have something to hide or something that's contrived and who knows what you're doing. I'm telling you to do that because you have no idea what just occurred first. Anything you say, is it really going to be accurate? And you don't want to be held to a statement that's inaccurate. Plus, you still have to think about if there's still an active threat, your 911 call changes. He's in the house. I'm in the bedroom. They want to keep you on the line. No, at that point in time, Dean, you have one thing on your mind, and that's defending your life and the life of your family. You can't be distracted by a 911 call. So you want to put that phone down. You want to hang that phone up. And then if it's over with, my name is Sean Maloney. I was in fear for my life. Send the ambulance and police. I'll be in the driveway. And then that part of the phone call is over with. If the assailant is gone, or let's say the assailant is dead, well, at that point in time, stand in the driveway without your firearm. Stand in the foyer over the body without your firearm, because as soon as the police roll up, remember, certainly you have the ability to use lethal force or deadly force when you have a gun in your hand. So the best way to do is to defuse the situation and put your gun away, if you can remember to do that.
And there is a tendency to want to start arguing your case, right? If you just shot somebody, a normal person is going to have some measure of guilt about that, or they're going to worry if they're going to be in trouble, or they want to justify what they just did. But this is not the time to start making your case, right? You're just calling for police to show up, calling for an EMT to show up. You don't want to argue your case, but your brain is going to be telling you to do that, right?
You're absolutely right. The sole purpose of the 911 call is to summon help, period. That's it. But as reasonable, rational people, again, we have no idea what happened. So we're going to start replaying things in our mind, and you start saying things. I can't believe I shot him. Why did I shoot him? Why did I do this? Well, you know at the time why you did, because you're in fear of death or service bodily injury or harm. But now you're being recorded saying, why did I do this? I can't believe I did that. Well, nobody could believe that they were forced to shoot somebody, but statements like that, are you rationalizing what just happened, can be taken really out of context. That's why we don't want to stay on the phone and have anything recorded, because we're still trying to rationalize what happened. We don't need anybody else hearing our thoughts as to why we acted the way we did. You want to hang up when the police officers arrive. You want to say, officer, that's my assailant. There's the weapon. Those people were witnesses. If you're outside of the ATM machine, I'll be happy to cooperate, but not until I've had the opportunity to speak to an attorney. Until then, I want to exercise my Fifth Amendment rights to remain silent, and I'll be happy to cooperate. Thank you.
And then in addition to all this stuff going on in your brain, you're actually compelled to talk, right? I mean, you become very talkative at that moment.
All the adrenaline, the norepinephrine streaming through your body, you want to do nothing more than talk and explain. I mean, when people get excited, some people on a normal basis, you'll hear them, they can't shut up. At the Thanksgiving dinner table, they can't shut up. So imagine you're the same way. You're acting under all these stress, and the most traumatic incident just occurred that you were involved in, and you're going to say nothing about it. We're not geared to act that way, and that's why we want to just start talking and talking and talking. So the biggest thing you need to remember at that point in time is just shut up. I used to say that as an attorney, sometimes that's my greatest joy, to look at a client and say, "Do me a favor, shut up."
So, Sean, when you join Second Call Defense, on the back of the membership card, if I recall, it does give you advice. So, at that moment, you may not remember all these little details, but you can turn the card over and just read from it. What all does it say on that card? Do you have one handy that you can tell us everything that's on that card?
I don't have one handy, but I can tell you what on the back of the card. It's going to say the same thing. Your name. I was in fear for my life. I was involved in whatever it is. I'll be happy to cooperate with you, but not until I've had the opportunity to speak to an attorney and collect my thoughts. And interestingly enough, the last two cases that I personally handled for Second Call Defense were both shootings that occurred in the state of Ohio. And in both cases, I represented the Second Call Defense members. And the second member was a member that was forced to use self-defense after they bought food from a food truck in downtown Columbus. That person came up to approach this gentleman and said, "Hey, two people did. Will you jump my car? It's parked behind the UDF. I need you to come back there and give me a jump." And Hare was standing up on the Second Call Defense member's arms, and he's thinking, "Nah, I don't think so." He's waiting for his food to be made. "Nah, I'm not going to help you out." And they're saying, "Oh, please," they're begging with him. Well, then he remembered that he just jumped his girlfriend's car, and the jumper cables were laying right out in the back of the trunk. He said, "Okay, I'll help you out." So he drove back, got bumper to bumper, popped the trunk, bent over in the trunk to grab the jumper cables, and he started getting pistol whipped. He started to turn around, and the assailant shot at him 3 times, point blank range, missed every time. Our Second Call Defense member responded with 2 shots to the chest and killed him. Almost everything was on video, because remember, you're in today's day and age, you're on video somewhere. So he called 911, got help on the way, and at that point in time had not called Second Call Defense yet. Homicide detectives came, looked at the film, had just about everything they needed, took him down and were interrogating him or questioning him, getting a statement from him in the homicide detective's office. Well, he's sitting at a table. They start to ask questions. He reaches in his wallet and pulls out a Second Call Defense card, flips it over, and just says, "Here you go." And the police officers read the back of the card. And the front of the card is the emergency hotline number. And the police officers called the emergency hotline, got a hold of me. It was probably 12:30 at night at that point in time, and said, "Hey, this is what happened. We have almost everything on film. We have a couple questions we just need to ask your client, and we'll be done." And I said, "Do me a favor, excuse yourself and leave me and my client alone." So I talked to him. He told me what happened. I said, "Okay, now when they ask you a question, you give me time to let me tell you. You can answer it." 2 simple questions, and they all centered around the accomplice to the case. And they said, "Very well, you can go home. We're not going to press charges against you or file charges." I asked the police officers to escort him home to make sure he got home all right, and they did that. So that's when the Second Call Defense training and the card worked perfectly. And it was a real experience where it was the back of that card that said, "I'll be happy to cooperate, but not until I've had the opportunity to collect my thoughts and speak to an attorney."
Well, that's a pretty good argument for being a member of Second Call Defense, right, Sean?
I think it worked perfectly. And another one we had in a pizza shop where 2 armed robbers busted in, and it basically occurred basically the same way. And you have to have legal representation. I mean, you could try to do it yourself, folks, but I'm telling you, there's going to be a criminal investigation. Depending upon where you are and what's involved, you never know how far that criminal investigation is going to go. You want to make sure that legally you have the best protection you can possibly have after the incident.
Well, Sean, that's really helpful to know. It's strange that calling 911, which seems so simple, can actually be pretty complicated. But if you're a member of Second Call Defense, you can make it a lot easier for people if that happens. So thanks again. That's all for now. If you're not a member of Second Call Defense, go to secondcalldefense.org, sign up for a complete self-defense legal protection. We'll see you next time on the Second Call Defense podcast. Be safe.